Populism. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot these days, often with a mix of fear and fascination. It's become a catch-all term for political movements that seem to tap into something raw and powerful. But here's the paradox. While populist leaders often claim to speak for the people, they often end up dividing them even more. Populism thrives on drawing lines in the sand. Us versus them. The pure people versus the corrupt elite. It's a seductive narrative, especially in times of uncertainty and change. But who decides who belongs to the people and who gets cast out? That's where things get complicated. Populism isn't new. It's been around for centuries, popping up in different forms across the globe. From ancient Athenian demagogues to modern-day Twitter storms, the playbook remains remarkably consistent. A charismatic leader emerges, promising simple solutions to complex problems. They appeal to a sense of grievance, a feeling that the system is rigged against ordinary people. So how do we make sense of this complex and often contradictory phenomenon? Let's dive in. At the heart of populism lies a fundamental question: who are the people? It seems like a simple question, but it's a slippery one. Is it everyone who lives within a country's borders? Is it only those who share a particular ethnicity, religion, or way of life? Populist leaders often define the people in narrow and exclusionary ways. They draw sharp distinctions between the real people and those they deem outsiders, enemies, or threats. This can be based on anything from national origin to economic status to political beliefs. This exclusionary rhetoric can have dangerous consequences. It can create a climate of fear and suspicion, making it easier to justify discrimination and violence against those who don't fit in. Because in the hands of a skilled populist, the word people can be a powerful weapon. Populism isn't a new phenomenon. It's been simmering beneath the surface of societies for centuries. In ancient Athens, charismatic leaders like Cleon rose to power by appealing to the anxieties of ordinary citizens, often by scapegoating foreigners and elites. Fast forward to the late 19th century and we see populism erupting in the United States. Figures like William Jennings Bryan championed the cause of farmers and workers against the perceived power of big banks and railroads. The 20th century saw populism take on new and often dangerous forms. The rise of fascism in Europe was fueled by a toxic mix of nationalism, economic anxiety, and resentment towards minorities and intellectuals. Today, populism is experiencing a global resurgence. Understanding this long and complicated history is crucial for making sense of populism's current manifestations. One of the hallmarks of populism is the charismatic leader. These figures often possess an almost magnetic appeal. They're skilled orators, able to connect with people on an emotional level. They speak plainly, often eschewing the jargon of experts and intellectuals. Think of figures like Donald Trump, Jair Bolsonaro, or Rodrigo Duterte. They're often seen as outsiders, shaking up the established order. They promise to drain the swamp of corruption, to restore national pride, to put the people first. They tap into a deep well of resentment towards the status quo and offer themselves as the solution. But charisma can be a double-edged sword. While it can inspire and mobilize, it can also be used to manipulate and deceive. This is why it's crucial to look beyond the surface appeal of charisma and to critically examine the policies and actions of populist leaders. Populism might seem like a purely domestic affair, but it's deeply intertwined with global forces. Globalization, with its promise of interconnectedness and economic growth, has also created winners and losers. The decline of manufacturing jobs, the rise of automation, and the influx of immigrants have left many feeling left behind and uncertain about the future. Social media has amplified these anxieties, creating echo chambers where people are bombarded with news and information that confirms their existing biases. Populist leaders have been quick to exploit these anxieties, blaming globalization for their country's woes. They promise to protect jobs, to close borders, to restore a sense of national sovereignty. They often scapegoat outsiders, immigrants, refugees, international organizations, for complex problems like economic inequality and social unrest. Understanding the global context of populism is crucial for crafting effective responses. One of the most fertile grounds for populism is economic discontent. When people feel like the system is rigged against them, when they see their jobs disappearing and their wages stagnating, they're more likely to be receptive to populist appeals. Populist leaders often tap into this anger, blaming economic woes on a range of scapegoats. Immigrants who are stealing jobs, global elites who are shipping jobs overseas, or corrupt politicians who are in bed with big business. They promise simple solutions: protectionist trade policies, tax cuts for the working class, a crackdown on immigration. These promises often resonate with people who are struggling to make ends meet and who feel like the current system isn't working for them. However, the economic policies of populist leaders often fail to deliver on their promises. While populism has been around for centuries, the digital age has given it new and potent tools. Social media platforms have become battlegrounds for shaping public opinion, spreading misinformation, and mobilizing support. Populist leaders have been particularly adept at using these platforms to their advantage. They bypass traditional media outlets, which they often accuse of bias, and communicate directly with their followers through Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms. This allows them to control their message, bypass fact-checking, and spread their propaganda unfiltered. Social media algorithms designed to maximize engagement often prioritize sensationalist content and create echo chambers where users are primarily exposed to information that confirms their existing biases. Populist leaders exploit these dynamics, using social media to spread disinformation, attack their opponents, and sow discord among the population. One of the most seductive aspects of populism is its promise of simplicity. In a world that often feels increasingly complex and overwhelming, populist leaders offer straightforward answers to complicated questions. They cut through the noise of expert opinions and nuanced debates with clear-cut solutions and bold pronouncements. They tell us that the problems we face are the result of bad deals, corrupt elites, or outside forces. They assure us that if we just get rid of the bad guys, whether they're immigrants, globalists, or intellectuals, and return to a mythical past, everything will be all right. But the reality is that most of the challenges we face, from climate change and economic inequality to pandemics and technological disruption, are incredibly complex. They require careful analysis, thoughtful debate, and nuanced solutions. The allure of simplicity can be tempting, but it often comes at a high price. To truly understand the global impact of populism, let's take a journey from the heart of the Amazon rainforest to the halls of power in Washington, D.C. In Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro rose to power on a wave of discontent, promising to restore order and revive the economy. His rhetoric resonated with those frustrated by corruption scandals and a crippling recession. Bolsonaro, often dubbed the Trump of the tropics, adopted a similar playbook, attacking the media, undermining democratic institutions, and appealing to a nostalgic vision of national greatness. He championed the interests of agribusiness and dismissed concerns about deforestation in the Amazon as foreign conspiracies. Meanwhile, across the globe in the United States, Donald Trump's presidency ushered in an era of heightened political polarization and democratic backsliding. These two seemingly disparate cases highlight the global reach of populism and its corrosive effects on democratic norms, environmental protections, and social cohesion. From the destruction of the Amazon to the assault on the U.S. Capitol, the consequences of unchecked populism are real and alarming. So, where do we go from here? Is populism an inevitable feature of modern politics, or can we find ways to mitigate its more destructive tendencies? The future of populism depends on a multitude of factors, from the state of the global economy to the evolution of social media. One thing is certain: the underlying conditions that have fueled populism in recent years, economic inequality, social fragmentation, rapid technological change, are not going away anytime soon. If anything, these challenges are likely to intensify in the coming decades. However, there are reasons for cautious optimism. Efforts to promote media literacy, to combat online hate speech, and to hold social media companies accountable for the content they host are crucial for mitigating the more harmful aspects of populism. Populism is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon. It's not inherently good or bad. It can be a force for positive change, amplifying the voices of the marginalized and holding the powerful accountable. But it can also be a tool for division, manipulation, and authoritarianism. The responsibility lies with each of us to be informed, engaged, and discerning citizens. We must be wary of simplistic solutions and easy answers, and we must demand more from our leaders than empty promises and divisive rhetoric. Let's start a conversation about this critical issue and work together to build a future where populism serves as a force for good, not division.